Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm here again with Belligerent Christian. Link to his channel in the description below. And we are here talking about the resurrection again today. We talked last time about the Nazareth inscription and Tacitus, and we ended on talking about the apostles and their messages to the Roman world. And so that's where we'll pick up today. So, Chris, could you please reiterate your position on the apostles?
Okay, um, so I hang my argument on the behavior of the apostles and what they claimed and what they did following their claims. That's a truck. And what I say is there's no, what I just said to you was that I hold that there's no rational explanation for them to hold the views and the beliefs and the claims that they held, and then suffer the consequences that they suffered, unless it was true. So that's what I say. But we can dispute and we can argue about that.
Okay, all right, it's a fair place to start. Okay, so you say it's not rational for them to hold these positions and to believe that these claims they're making are true, and incidentally suffer death and punishment because they held these beliefs. So that these beliefs must be true.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't think it was necessarily a rational basis for these beliefs. It seems, again, we're not even to really how the beliefs originated, but just the spreading of them, and in the disseminating of these stories to the Roman, the Greek, and Asia Minor world.
Don't forget the Egyptian world and the
Egyptian world, yeah.
The rest of Middle East as far as India.
Well, that's Asia Minor.
That's all Asia Minor? I thought we were talking specifically about Turkey when we talk about Asia Minor.
No, it's
okay. That's just
at any rate
a geological goof on my part, but okay.
Middle East, Turkey, etc.
Okay.
Eastern Europe and what else? So I don't think it was necessarily a rational thing on their part. They wanted to tell these stories to get them out there, and a way that they did it was, or they suffered martyrdom, and to the Romans.
Let's just say they suffered. Let's just be like as cool about it as possible. Let's just say that they suffered.
Yeah, I did say suffered, didn't I?
Yeah. But we added like they got martyred. Let's not go that far yet. Let's just say they suffered.
Okay. So they suffered martyrdom, and the only reason they would have done that is if their beliefs were true. And where I was going with that. So to the Romans, as we pointed out last time, martyrdom was not a great thing. Martyrdom meant that you failed, that your rebellion was crushed, etc. There was no glory in being martyred.
Yeah, this is the Greco-Roman idea of who's got the better idea. It's who gets the most glory, whose ideas actually win at the end of the day. Yeah.
Okay, so
which isn't necessarily the Jewish way of looking at it either, but it certainly was a little bit Jewish. A lot of Jews were becoming Hellenized, and they were on board with some of these ideas also. So there's that.
It seems though, based on some biblical quotes like the one I referenced last time, which was it Matthew 5:10, I think.
Okay, now wait. Are you sure you want to bring the Bible into it?
Well, the problem with what I'm not doing is asserting. I'm not saying the Bible is correct in what it says. The only reason that I'm using biblical
Okay,
quotes
then the
in this context is to rebut the statement that uh, that the Jewish people wouldn't have been open to martyrdom, because it seems that they were, based on biblical writings and acts, like the Maccabean revolt. Uh, that was also uh, Antiochus ignited a war banning. So the guy who started the Maccabean revolt, he was
yeah.
well, um, but it didn't mean so much that they'd lost. Maybe to the Romans it did, but not really to the Jews. And so
Mhm.
it
Yeah,
seems that the
and the
go ahead.
martyrdom, if we want to call it that, of Maccabees, it was political martyrdom. He did think that his ideas were true, which would explain why he's willing to die for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so um, but just because they considered their ideas to be true, that doesn't make them true necessarily.
Of course.
So we have to have some way to verify that what they believed was true.
Mm-hmm.
And so how would you suggest we test whether or not their beliefs were true?
I would say, sorry, I'm fighting with this guy in the chat. Well, the reason why I think the apostles are trustworthy in what they claimed is because by the very fact that they're plural. There's multiple apostles claiming that they saw Jesus, and not just that they saw Jesus, but that they saw him at the same time. If we take the what is it? If we take the biblical narrative seriously, which I think we should, but we don't have to. But there's multiple people who have claimed to see Jesus alive after he died. They validate each other. So that's what I say.
You're not at all disturbed by the necessary contradictions in their narratives?
And in the biblical narrative?
In the gospel narratives.
In the gospel
Not the
narrative?
biblical
Right.
narrative as a whole, just in the gospel narratives.
I don't think they're contradictory
At all.
I mean, if you want to spend the next half hour talking about like what these details mean and what why one says 5, why one says 2, and whatnot, like we can do that. But I prefer to just stick with the claims of the apostles that Jesus rose from the dead.
If we take, for example, the specific claim of the number of people who went to Jesus' tomb, you don't see that as a necessary contradiction, or as necessary contradiction.
I don't even think that they contradict each other in saying who went to the tomb.
How so?
Okay. So one of the gospel accounts, I don't remember which, but one of them says that 5 women went to the tomb.
Right.
So what I say from that is that we can say that at least 5 women went to the tomb. And then when we have another gospel that's saying 2 of these women's names, okay, these 2 were among the 5 that went to the tomb.
Even though the other 3 plus aren't mentioned in that narrative.
Right. Yeah. You have to remember, they're not writing the same way that we write today, where we have to capture every detail of what's going on.
Okay.
They're just getting basic points across.
Okay, but why was it important for the one guy to write to say these 2 were important women, and then there were 3 other women who were unnamed, whereas another one just wrote that there were 2 women?
I don't know why he would say that there's just 2 women,
What?
But one of the theories that I've heard for why certain people are named and why certain people are left out of narratives entirely is because those are the people who are still alive. that can be spoken to. The Gospels weren't written for us in the 20th century. They were written for people in the first century. And so the Gospel is telling us where we can look and what happened with Jesus. And the names they give are for people who are still alive and can say, yeah, I saw Jesus, and yeah, that's how it happened.
Okay, I've never heard that before, so I'll have to
Yeah, it's a trip.
put some investigation into that.
Sure.
But back to the claims of. But you're right. We can get back to the claims of the apostles. But also, what about the ways in which they quote verify that Jesus is actually in front of them? It's like the number of ways they have to verify increases from story to story.
Mm-hmm.
You don't.
Sure, why not?
You don't think that's odd? It's like,
No.
oh, we did this, and then the next one, it's, oh, we did this and this, and then it's, oh, we did this, this, and this. It's like they're trying to appeal more and more and more to this is an evidentiary belief that we're holding, or we have actually touched him. We have seen, used our senses. We know this is really truly him. Their claims are varying in the amount of argument they're putting into their claims.
I would say that it's more about how much they are trying to present, which may be exactly what you're saying. It's how much they are trying to present to people to say, hey, I'm not crazy. I actually saw Jesus. So it would be like me telling you, hey, dude, the earth is flat. And you're like, no, it's not. And you have your reasons for saying that. But I say, okay, no, really, the earth is flat. I have been to the edge of the world and seen that it's flat. And you're like, nah, I know for a fact that the earth is round. And I say, okay, well, I have been to the edge of the world. I have dropped something off the edge of it, and it just plummeted to oblivion. You see, I'm increasing how much evidence I'm giving to say, hey, the world is flat. And this is kind of what's going on in the Gospels, I suspect.
Oh, well, I guess I'll have to. Oh man, I wish I'd brought a source for that. I wish I'd went looking for a source for that earlier. I didn't think this was that we would go, and so I wish I had some more concrete.
Let's go back to the apostles. Let's just drop this. And, yeah,
it's unfortunate examples to give. But anyways, oh my goodness. I just realized we're getting a whole bunch of
no, it's just me arguing with this guy in the chat.
James Downard, yeah. Yeah, James is a friend of mine.
Oh, okay. Hello, James.
So millions of devout Mormons. Whoa. This is very interesting.
Yeah.
In what year was Jesus born? If Jesus was resurrected, why did the Parousia, Parousia, what is that?
It's a Greek word. Its meaning escapes me at the moment. If Jesus was resurrected, why did the Parousia not take place as predicted? Jeez, I almost want to say Parousia is referring to a reviewing or something.
I could probably.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and.
Parousia. It means ancient Greek word, presence, arrival, official visit. Okay, but what does it mean? New Testament. Here we go. The word is used 24 times in the New Testament. 6 refer to the coming of individuals. Paul himself, and the 7th one, the coming of lawless. The other 17 uses refer to the second coming of Christ, except the one case which it refers to the coming of the day of God. The word parousia is found in the following verses. Blah, 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 blah. It basically just.
Okay, he says Perusia is the second coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. So then say second coming. Sheesh. Yeah, as we've just shown, there's a few different Perusias we can be talking about. But if second coming didn't take place as predicted, what do you mean didn't take place as predicted? John himself addresses this in toward the end of his gospel. Some people mistakenly believe that Jesus was coming back within the lifetime of the apostles.
that's
John
right. That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. But John himself says that no. It's but he says no. He only said, if I will it, that he should live until I come back. What is that to you? And he's talking to Peter. But yeah, even Jesus, when he's talking about the second coming, about the day of the Lord, he says it's going to come like a thief in the night. No one's going to know when it's happening. So if someone says that, oh, I know he's coming back within this given time frame, whether or not this person is living in the 1st century or the 21st, you can be pretty sure that person's a liar, because no one knows.
So,
but that's all.
Okay, so wait, can you explain? So wait, can you explain why, after Jesus said, or that he will return while his apostles are still alive, could you?
But that's not what he said. That's what I'm saying. That's specifically not what he said. Yeah.
Look for the resurrection.
Okay. There's some of you here who shall not taste of death before the Son of Man comes in his kingdom. Yeah, and talking about the resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jesus does say that part, and so what else could be the intended meaning? And that seems pretty straightforward.
You lost me. How do you mean?
There are some of you here who shall not taste of death before the Son of Man comes in his kingdom.
Yeah.
It's referring to the second coming, right?
Not necessarily. He came in his kingdom many times. There's a I forget what the situation was, but Jesus was talking to someone, and he says the kingdom of heaven is something like at hand or right before you, and he's talking to himself, him in his kingdom right there before someone.
He's saying Paul and the early martyrs were very much expecting an imminent second coming. This is well known to the scholarly literature.
Yeah, of course. Doesn't mean Paul got everything right.
Okay.
It was just that.
Okay. Okay. So the early Christians were expecting a second coming during their lifetime, according to
some of them were, yeah.
Including
we could
Paul.
even say a large number of them were.
Including Paul.
Paul may have been. I don't know. No.
I mean, that seems pretty important, don't you think?
That they were expecting an imminent second coming,
but
during that
lifetime,
nothing.
Yes.
You can fight about it. I'm not concerned about it.
Rationalize the failure. The Perusia by Augustine, they clearly weren't getting.
something.
Okay, so keep your. Paul explicitly said, "Keep your
Yeah,
bags
yeah,
packed. It's any minute." I like that.
yeah. That's in the Book of Armaments, right? Book of Armaments, chapter 40.
The book of what?
Armaments. It's a Monty Python joke. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's wait. Was that from Monty
the
Python?
the Devil Rabbit, Monty Python Holy Grail.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
remember that one. Oh yeah, it's been like years since I saw that. No.
But yeah, so I mean, if we say Paul or even if we say Jesus, I mean the point is to like keep yourself in the faith, keep yourself in the Word, because you don't know when He's coming back.
Okay,
It
so
could be today. I mean,
right, right. So
now no one knows that, but could be,
right. So
and you don't want to be caught with your pants down, as it were.
so so we want to get back to the claims about how do we know what the apostle said was true, and what we have is we have the Bible saying that these guys claim this, but what is described in the Bible was oral tradition for many or until at least like 30 years later at the very least. Am I correct? I mean, it was the gospels were still written in the
30
first
years
century.
later.
It was just at the
Paul
very least
died in Paul died around 57 A.D. That's within what is it, 24
24 years. Okay.
years? Yeah, within 24 years of Jesus dying, and there's some space in there between when Jesus dies and Paul actually converts. So I mean that's pretty close, and even there in First Corinthians and in Romans, he's talking death, resurrection, and deity. So
Okay. I mean, I'm not arguing that he believes he had some experience.
mm-hmm. But see, for if you really want to dig down into Paul, I don't stick on Paul, but he's actually a really important case for this. There's no reason for Paul to convert to Christianity. He hated Christianity. He was a devout Jew and a Pharisee, if we take him at his word, and there's absolutely no reason why he would turn on a dime and convert to Christianity, become the greatest evangelist and our first theologian.
Okay, here's something I've found. It says the historical reliability of the Acts of the Apostles, principal source. Archaeological inscriptions of other independent sources show that Acts contains accurate details of first century society, specifically with regard to titles of officials, administrative divisions, town assemblies, and rules of the Jewish temple in Jerusalem. A key contested issue, however, is the historicity of the depiction of Paul in Acts. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Acts describes Paul differently from how Paul describes himself, both factually and theologically.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to keep
I'd like
reading.
to
And
see what they mean by that, but okay, whatever.
I'll get back to that in a second. Then I'm going to read what James has put in there. Acts differs with Paul's letters.
Whatever. James is just. Never mind. Never mind. Okay.
Acts differs with Paul's letters on important issues such as the law, Paul's own apostleship, and his relation to the Jerusalem church. Scholars generally prefer Paul's account over that in Acts. However, some prominent scholars and historians view the book of Acts as being fairly accurate and corroborated by archaeology, and in general agreement with the Pauline epistles. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so James is saying, I covered a lot of the Perusia issue in chapter 6 with Tip. Can't go to the website. Okay. Paul, of course, basically found evangelical Christianity. Paul may have been in. Oh, yeah. That's right. I have actually, believe it or not, I have actually heard the epileptic thing. I heard it once. I heard it in a book I read once on religious psychology. Yeah, it was.
Oh, that when Jesus appeared to him on the road to Damascus, this was actually just an epileptic seizure.
Yeah,
Is
I
that what
read
we're
that.
talking about?
Yeah, I
Okay.
read that like once in a book on religious psychology. I don't know what the. I honestly don't know what the accuracy of that claim is. I've just
Probably
heard it.
nil. But I mean,
I've just heard it once. I just heard it once, and this is I didn't even know anyone else had even heard of it. So this is I
yeah, but you see, this is the length people go to. I mean, this is me talking
yeah, I heard that Muhammad
as a
may have
faith-based
also been
Christian.
epileptic. It was you have the papers on both. Yeah, I think the book is titled the God Part of the Brain. I still have it. It's by Matthew Alper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still have it. But yeah, I think I've heard that. At any rate, at any rate, I don't think the issue really is whether or not he's an epileptic, and that might have caused some religious seizures, whatever. I think the issue is, can we independently corroborate that what he's saying is true? It's not enough to say that Paul said it. That's not enough because, as Peter pointed out in at least the first conversation I saw you do with him, um, if Harry Potter says something or other, that doesn't make it true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay. I'd like to read the papers on that. Um, uh, oh, there it is. Surely enough. Okay.
Boom.
So what I was saying was, so
Yeah,
we
but
need we
does the
need
live chat disappear after we end the stream, or
does the live chat disappear? Let me
never
see.
mind, never mind.
I can
Okay.
look up this paper. Wait, look up the paper. Okay. So what I'm saying is, um, hey, I found it. Uh, what is important is not just that Paul said it. Wouldn't you agree? You would agree that it's not just that we don't just accept what he's saying at face value. We
If
will
we want to
accept.
verify, yes, there are things that we can do. We can see
Yes,
what are his motives, what's happening in his life, what's causing him to think this. And again, Paul is a perfect example of someone who has no good reason to believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And yet
according to
he does a
Paul.
180 on persecuting the church. Right.
It
Well,
seems
not
like
just
it's,
according to Paul, but according to everyone.
but I mean, it seems like so. It's like it's Paul saying that he did this originally and then became uh, a Christian, or then had a vision of Christ and became a Christian, and et cetera, et cetera. The rest is history.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's Paul according to Paul. Do
It's
we have?
Paul according to the whoever wrote Acts. I say Luke, but whatever. Uh, I mean, it's Paul according to Acts, the Acts of the Apostles. I mean, you even said yourself that whoever wrote Acts has a different view of Paul than Paul has of himself.
Yeah.
Someone
So Paul
else is
couldn't have
writing
written.
this. Yeah, someone else is writing this about Paul.
Right. 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 Um, people who want to go epiphanies. Yeah, I guess that's true. Um,
Yep, agreed.
I haven't really done a whole lot. I wish I knew more about the psychology of religion. It seems like such a fascinating subject, but I unfortunately do not know a whole lot about it. Um,
You want to know about it from me?
I think I'd look more
People
into.
make up their gods and worship them based on what they think is important.
I think I'd look
This
more
is
into
this is
the. Well, I mean, I feel like that's true to an extent, um,
yeah.
but anyways, okay, um, okay. So independent corroboration of what Paul is saying.
Mm-hmm.
What extra biblically speaking, what corroboration is there? There is no corroboration that Paul had these experiences because they're just happening to Paul and the other apostles. But and okay,
Right,
that's fine. And
but
I mean, what I was going to say is that that's fine. Okay, I sure they had these
okay.
experiences, or at least they claim to have these. They claim to have these experiences. We really can't verify that they had these experiences because we're 2,000 years later,
Mm-hmm.
so we can't really know what they saw, if anything. And so there should be.
This is the same thing though. Like we don't get to choose the evidence we have. We just have the evidence that we do have.
Well, we
And we have
have
to make our judgments based on that.
statements, and we have to determine whether or not these statements are viable.
Right.
For example,
so we have witness accounts.
If you look at the clay tablets from Uruk, and they're talking about, Enkidu and Gilgamesh fighting the I can't remember the name of the forest giant. The forest giant, like the four winds pin him down while they kill him, right? Okay, I mean, we have these,
Sure.
but any evidence to believe that Enkidu and Gilgamesh were out actually fighting giants, and there was all this other stuff, all this other crazy crap happening at the same time.
Do we have evidence that people thought this was a work of nonfiction?
That people thought what was work of nonfiction?
The Epic of Gilgamesh.
Did you say?
I don't know. I haven't looked at it.
I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
Do we know that the Epic of Gilgamesh was written as historical narrative, or was it a work of fiction as a story?
Let me see.
Or was it a fictitious religious belief or something like that?
Among the
it's neither here nor there, but
the Epic of Gilgamesh from
the
ancient
Babylonians thought it was real. Yes. Okay.
They thought it was real. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I mean, it has. It, as well as the Bible, both get their flood stories from the earlier Akkadian cult. No, they were the Akkadians. From the early
I disagree, but
Sumerian culture. There's actually quite a good deal of comparative mythological and geological evidence that the Akkadians and the Babylonians took their flood story from the earlier Sumerians, from the Epic of Zusudra, because around the time that Zusudra is thought to have lived, there was actually a flood in that area because it's the Iraqi floodplain, and so there's of this flood coinciding with the time that supposedly lived. So even if Zusudra himself didn't live, there was this event, this flood, and people wrote about it, and the story got disseminated into Asia Minor later.
Yeah, and this is all coming from a worldview that says God doesn't exist.
Not necessarily,
that
no.
The Yahweh of the Bible doesn't exist. I mean...
Not necessarily, no. You can go to Biologos. They actually have an entire... Biologos is entirely done by Christians who accept evolution. Francis Collins, who is a famous American geneticist, he's a Christian, and so he started up this website, Biologos, so they could kind of ease tensions between science and religion, as it were. And yeah, he's
conceding everything to science. Yeah.
No, they don't actually. Also, James says, no, the scholars who saw the connections in the 19th century weren't atheists. He's probably right on. Also, yeah. I don't really know the history of, but so I'll have to take your word for that. No, it's not necessarily about being an atheist or being a Hindu or whatever. It's about viewing the evidence. Does worldview come into it? Well, maybe, but if you're honest with yourself, then you're going to change your worldview when the evidence comes in.
But see, what part of my worldview affects my eternal salvation? It's what I say about Jesus Christ. It's not what I say about the flood. It's not what I say about a six-day creation. It's not about any of that. It's about what do I say about Jesus Christ, and that's why that's what I zero in on.
Okay.
So you can tell me about Noah's flood all day. I don't care. I'm just going to turn around and ask you, okay, what do you say about Jesus Christ? That's my shtick.
Okay, but thus far we have yet to establish that there is any good reason to believe
Okay,
that
well,
there's
let's do that.
resurrection. Okay,
Let's do that.
I mean the closest we've gotten so far is some guys claim to have some a group or groups of people claim to have experiences, which if that's the which I don't think that is the best. I I mean, if you think that that is the evidence for it, then that's pretty it's pretty ambiguous evidence. Ambiguous is being a very good or being about the highest I can think of with that kind of evidence.
Okay, so let's try to rationalize without a resurrection. If Jesus didn't rise from the dead, why do these guys make the claim?
I
Why did they
can't
make
really
that
understand
claim? And
on from my position. I can't really understand why any religion starts. Maybe someone has an epiphany or something like that, and the story gets disseminated. I don't understand why Joseph Smith wrote the Book of Mormon. I don't understand why Muhammad wrote the Quran or anything like that. I don't. From my
okay,
perspective,
well,
I don't
well, we
understand why they would do these things, but to them there was a reason.
yeah, and there was now for Joseph Smith and Muhammad and every other. There's a I'll back up. There's a little cartoon out there that so it's titled "What I Like About Christianity," and first it says how all other religions get started. Either there's a someone has a private revelation, uh, someone thinks they have a private revelation, or there's they tell someone about it privately, and then they proclaim it to the public what their private revelation was. When the difference for how, and then it says how Christianity started. It's Jesus had a public ministry. Jesus publicly was executed. Jesus publicly showed himself to a bunch of people, and then they told everyone what they saw. Like, so it's now talking about the motives for why the people in that first depiction, why these private people have their private revelations and then tell them to people. There's obvious motive there. There's motive. They want to become leaders of their own religion. They want people to worship them and have give them riches and fame and whatever other perks. We don't have that with the apostles. We have to come up with some other reason for why they said what they said. Knock knock.
I'm still here. I can still hear you. You can still
Okay,
hear me,
cool.
right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Um, I'm not. Again, everything that you've said. Jesus, like Jesus
How do you
saying
mean?
these things, always alive, and I mean everything. That problem with Jesus doing any of the things that is described to him doing that are within
I'm
the
sorry,
laws of physics.
you're breaking up. You're
That's
breaking up. What'd you say?
hello,
Hello.
Marco.
Hello.
Cool.
Okay.
So I don't have really any things being ascribed that are within the law. All that stuff. That's all well and good. The issue arises when we start making claims about these supernatural events.
They do.
The law
Yeah.
of conservation of mass and things like that. James?
You were breaking up
Uh-oh.
really bad there. What?
Oh, am I? Of course, I can't tell on my end if I'm breaking up. So if I ever break up, just say, "Hey, start over."
Yeah, yeah.
Um. Anyways, um, the problem is not making claims about things. The problem is making claims about supernatural things, breaking the law of mass and or matter and things like that. Um, those need independent corroboration if we are to take those claims seriously.
Correct.
And something like the resurrection, the very best we have is these guys claim to have an experience, and then that story was disseminated throughout the rest of the world, or what was the world at that time.
Right.
And so that's not a very good or solid claim pointing to the resurrection or to anything supernatural. So there has to be some other kind of evidence. I mean, not really kind of evidence, but there has to be some evidence pointing to an actual supernatural event.
I disagree. We have their claims. Can we rationalize why they are making these claims? I mean,
Can
that's...
we? Yes.
Okay, so why were they making these claims then? If there was no resurrection.
Well, if there were no resurrection, then it seems pretty easy to think that there were there. I'm just going to assume that there was an actual. I mean, I said earlier we're not going to argue whether or not Jesus existed, so we're just going to say there was a guy, Jesus, and he told, he preached the gospel, and then he died. And the story was written down years later, and it just seems that it became legendary over time. That's what it seems. It doesn't seem that he was lying or he was purposefully lying or he was crazy or anything like that. It just seems that maybe there was lying going on somewhere, but it doesn't seem that he...
we've got Paul.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
It doesn't seem that he or any of the apostles were purposefully lying. It just seems that the story became aggrandized over time. And sure, some of the events were dutifully recorded, as we saw earlier with regard to Acts. Paul notes some things that are correct. Sure, I'm not saying that
Luke,
everything has to be
things that are correct, but okay.
Okay, well, I mean that's also like the Roswell incident. Is there a town, was it Roswell, Arizona? Well, sure,
Mm-hmm.
but was the guy abducted by aliens, and is the government trying to cover it up? Well, probably not. Like 50, or let's say like 52% sure that they're not. All right. But I mean, just because some of the parts of the story are factual doesn't mean the entirety of the story is factual.
Sure.
And so we're not taking the claims of the guy in Roswell, Arizona at face value. He says he was abducted by aliens and the government's trying to cover it up, but we're thinking, it's probably not what happened. And as it turns out later, all they found were just some tinfoil and sticks in the desert, and that was where the story originated. It was completely harmless. It was just aggrandized over time. And not even over a long time. That was over about 30 years. Over about 30 years, the story became huge and was spread. Yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
Okay, so we're saying that it was legendary development.
Some parts of it were, yes.
Okay, so why is it that everywhere the story goes, the same three claims are always made? Jesus died, Jesus rose back from the dead, and Jesus is Lord.
Oh, the guy saw the wreckage? Okay. Okay, wait, I was mistaken. He wasn't abducted, he just saw the wreckage of an alien spaceship. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
Okay, well, at any rate,
see, if it's legendary development, see, here's the thing. If it's legendary development, then the story would have developed in different ways as it went to different cultures. And to some degree it did. But the common thread is always death, deity, and resurrection. That's the core of the claims that the apostles made.
Yeah, I agree with James. That is the core claims. Yeah, I mean it makes sense that this is the
Okay,
core of the story, so it makes sense
so it
that this part
legendarily developed within their own lifetimes? Is that what we're saying?
the story was oral tradition during their lifetimes, and it was them who passed it on through oral tradition until it was written down decades later. At the very minimum, 24 years later, as you
At the
pointed out
very
earlier.
latest, 24 years later, in the case of Paul, who is also
You're still not
claiming
clear about what
death, deity, and resurrection.
Okay, but we're also dealing with what we've been assuming thus far in our conversation is that the gospel authors are who they claimed, which is not the historical consensus.
Okay.
That is what we have been assuming this whole time.
Okay, so don't go to the Bible then.
But that okay, but I actually want to spend a little bit of time on this. That the main historical consensus is that the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John did not write.
I don't care about a historical consensus.
So these
I care
guys
about what is true. It's just like I don't care what you think science is. I only care what is true.
I mean, I guess I agree. It's not necessarily about what claims I make. It's about how I can back up those claims. But these are guys but what these guys do is they have investigated for their whole professional career these dead languages, and they've studied biblical texts and all these other ancient texts, and so all the others were rejected by the church. And so what we get, and so what they see as or what they see is that these books were not written by the guys they claimed. I mean, the Book of Mormon, the first book of the Book of Mormon is the Book of Lehi, if I remember correctly. It's like Lehi 1. And it says in Lehi 1, like, I am Lehi and these are my words.
You know, from the moment you say Book of Mormon, I automatically don't care about anything else you're going to say. Like me and you were in agreement.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
All right.
I could just as easily just shrug off your beliefs. You can't shrug off something just because it's associated with something. That's not how arguments work.
Okay, so what's the point here with Lehi 1?
Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that do we have any good reason to believe that there was a guy in like 600 BC, I think it is, named Lehi who actually wrote the first chapter of the Book of Mormon? The answer is evidently no. We don't have any reason to believe this.
Sure.
And
what I want to show you is that there is a difference between the Book of Lehi and the book of, say, 1 Corinthians.
I understand how the book of Corinthians was that was Paul, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Paul. Okay. But Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, for instance, the consensus. Well, we're not really going to get into that. Sorry, Peter. That's a conversation for another time. Actually, to me, never mind. Anyways,
actually, this kind of is the point. How do we know that Christianity is true, whereas Mormonism is not?
From my point of view, we don't. And the reason I say that is the reason I say that is having my elephant fish is going just crazy right now. I don't know why. I'm just looking across my room and he's going nuts. Okay.
New sound system?
What?
New sound system? Is he sensitive to that sort of thing, or what?
No, I was just looking at my tank across my room and my fish is going crazy. All right, so okay. Christianity more valid than Mormonism? And I would say no. I wouldn't say that any religion is more valid than any other religion because all religions are based ultimately on some supernatural claim by definition. They don't have they they you turn your skepticism on the Book of Mormon saying and you're pointing out like the flaws in that, but you don't apply that same skepticism to the the gospel authors, it seems.
False. So the Book of Mormon has no historically supporting evidence, no corroborating testimony, no hostile, neutral, or friendly witnesses to it whatsoever. Whereas Christianity and the Bible and the claims of Jesus Christ have all of these things.
Well, I would say that it doesn't have any. Well, the only people who would talk about it or in a hostile tone are Americans because Joseph Smith basically, yeah, it's basically because.
But there's what I mean. What I mean by hostile witnesses is someone who does not agree with the claims, but verifies things about them.
Okay, but
There's
you're making a false
witness to
analogy
the
here.
events.
You're making a false analogy. None of the hostile witnesses verify anything regarding the resurrection or the.
Tacitus verifies.
No, he does not. No, he does not verify the resurrection.
He verifies that there was a man named Christ in Judea who suffered the ultimate punishment, and that people worshipped him as a god.
That does not verify the resurrection.
Of course not.
Okay,
but
I
it
just
does
said
verify
that.
Parts about the story. He testifies to parts about the story. This is what a hostile witness is. A hostile witness doesn't have to verify everything.
And again, as I said, I have no problem with these natural claims, these more mundane claims. I have no problem with that. The problem is producing evidence for supernatural claims, which hasn't been done yet. It has not been done in all of our conversation.
Okay, so try this one.
Okay.
The Jewish Talmud. Okay, it says that Jesus was a faith healer. That's a very, very hostile witness to the Christianity, but it verifies the supernatural nature of Jesus' ministry. And that's in the religious memory of the Jews.
You know there are faith healers around today, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What does that tell you about the concept of faith healing? Apollonius of Tyana could raise the dead. Interesting. I don't know who that is.
Me either.
Tell me more, James. Interesting. But Jesus is not by a long shot the only person who's capable of more or less
faith healing, let's just call it.
Yeah, magic or supernatural miracles, miraculous abilities. I mean, there were lots of biblical characters who were capable of miraculous abilities, but that doesn't mean they actually did these things.
But it's within the recorded history of the Jews that he did. Now, whatever you may think about that, fine. But this is a hostile witness who also testifies to the supernatural nature of Jesus Christ.
No, Tacitus is testifying to...
I'm talking about the Talmud. I was talking about the Talmud.
Okay, sorry, my bad. The Talmud... Okay, so I have not read the Talmud, but...
It's pretty ugly. You'll enjoy it.
I don't know. I generally stick to science. Where was I going with that? The Talmud, right? So, okay. So all it does is say that he was a faith healer. In what year was Jesus born and died? Interesting.
He keeps trying to ask this question. Something like 4 to 0 BC, and died something like 29 to 33 AD. We'd have a better idea of what that date was if we still had the writings of Phlegon and Thales, but we don't. So
interesting. Okay. Alrighty. Well, okay, supernatural nature. Okay, well, in that time,
and that's a
okay,
hostile witness again.
okay, but again, in that time, leprosy was considered to be a curse by demons. Sneezing was thought, or the breathing was like your soul, and so when you sneezed, you had to say bless you to somebody else so demons couldn't get in their nose. I'm not particularly impressed by
and you don't have to be. But this is the nature of a hostile witness who verifies something about the claims of someone they disagree with.
Okay, I get that. I understand the concept of hostile witnesses, but it's still not very convincing to either me or any other skeptic to say that there was a faith healer named Jesus. Fine, okay. Oh, but did he resurrect himself from the dead and literally actually appear to followers who then accurately relayed the story later? That's a huge leap to go from the Talmud talks about his faith healing abilities to he really did resurrect and appear to his
followers and that's just because we're talking about the nature of a hostile witness. If you want the
sorry, go ahead.
If you want the claims that they themselves are making, then go to the friendly witnesses, the people actually making the claim. When we go into hostile witnesses and we're talking about that, we're just contrasting Mormonism with Christianity as who has witnesses to their testimony either for or against. Mormonism doesn't have that. Christianity does. That's all I'm showing. Now, if you want to determine that that it's true or not, well, go to who is making the claims. Can we find another reason? You've been saying the legendary development within the lives of the apostles. Okay, why would they need to legendarily develop Jesus' character?
I'm not saying they did. No, that was what I said earlier. I'm not saying anyone purposefully lied. I'm not saying anyone purposefully lied. Even if we said they thought they were faithfully repeating the story through oral tradition to other people, stories get changed. I know stories get changed because, I mean, you could just listen to, you know what fishtails are. Fishtails are, a guy maybe caught a fish that was like a foot long, but then by the end of the story, it's like a 10-foot fish, and it took him 3 days to catch it.
Caught a 10-foot tiger shark in that pond right there. Yeah, I know.
Exactly. I mean, that's what that's what fishtails are. That's in somebody's own lifetime.
We're talking about multiple apostles saying the same thing.
They're repeating the core of the story, as you said. You said the core of the story. He died, resurrected.
I'm just showing you what the common denominator is when I'm talking about the core of the story.
Okay, fine. That's fine. Which, I mean, in that case, I'm not particularly impressed that they can manage to remember 3 things. That's not even like a paragraph on an essay. That's just 3 little statements, which is okay, fine.
Yeah, and that's just because what I boil down Christianity to, and it is the common thread through all of them.
Fine. Okay,
of course, there's much more to everything. I mean, yeah.
I mean, I say okay, fine. But on early critics of Christianity, we don't know what Celsus had against Christianity, only what Origen quoted from him. We cannot confirm whether he quoted him correctly.
And that's not the important part of Origen.
Wait, what?
And that's not the important part of Origen. The important part of Origen is that he also testifies to what the apostles claimed.
Well, he wasn't there. He's repeating what the apostles claim.
True.
So that's not a testament. That's just these guys told it to me, and so I wrote it down.
No. What it is important is to show that it didn't legendarily develop between the apostles and the Council of Nicaea in 325. Whatever legendary development there was to the story, it happened within the lifetime of the apostles.
Okay. And I mean, again,
Yeah, just
okay. I
or origin is just pointing at something we've both already agreed on
okay. All right.
for the
Fair.
purpose of this conversation, anyway.
Fair
Yeah.
enough then. Fair enough. Um. Okay. I mean, again, it's kind of back to the what is the. I don't keep asking. We just keep kind of going around in other places, but
I know. I know.
the
Okay, so let me do this then.
okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Uh, so you say that the apostles legendarily developed the story of Jesus,
Not
right?
necessarily on purpose, maybe accidentally.
Okay, so accidentally. Okay,
Okay.
so how do we get from Jesus crucified, buried in a pauper's grave somewhere off to the side, to the story that the apostles told where Jesus appeared to them physically once again after he was dead?
How do we get there? That's what you're asking
Yeah,
me.
what's the evolution here if that's the claim?
Okay. Well, that's that's an interesting question. I suppose. Well, they would have needed, uh, if they're claiming prior to his death that he is deity, they're going to need. They would have needed some uh, post death. Well, and then he dies, and in his lifetime, he never showed off his deityness. So perhaps instead of
Okay.
during his lifetime showing it off, he appeared to them after his death. And so simply from then just go from there.
But hold on a second, James. That's neither here nor there. Just pay attention to the conversation. Okay, I'm sorry, Jackson. What were you
What?
saying? He's talking about Origin's mom and he was getting castrated or whatever. Like
Weird.
this. Yeah, I none of us here care about that. Come on, man. So
Interesting.
anyway,
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, you were saying.
Okay, so they claimed before Jesus died
Mhm.
that he was deity. And so since he never showed off his deityness during his lifetime, then it
Mhm.
must have occurred after his lifetime. And then
Okay.
just go from there.
Yeah. How does that happen?
Got me. I didn't write it down.
Well, we have to say what happened if we're just going to sweep it off the table and say,
I'm not saying it necessarily didn't happen. I'm just saying if I am to believe that what they're saying is true, there should be some corroborating evidence, but what we have is their claims of what happened.
and what we have is that 12 guys all at the same time, more or less, made the same claim.
Okay, I can see pretty easily
This this
how
this this is the check
okay,
against a
if
one
one guy
person having a legendarily developing Roswell story.
okay, but at the same time, you're also familiar with group hallucinations, right?
Never been proven. Quite the
Never been
opposite,
proved?
actually.
Never.
Quite the
Really?
opposite.
Huh. Okay. I guess. I don't know. Let's see. Group hallucination. Is it possible? Well, actually, if you think of you've heard of actually I'm not so sure that's true. Have you heard of the Lady of Fatima?
No.
Okay, well in
Actually,
1914
I have heard of that, but probably just because someone tried
okay,
quoting
so
it at
in
me.
1914 I think it was in Portugal in Fatima, Portugal, these little Catholic kids, everybody's Catholic in Portugal, I guess. So um so what happened was they all claimed to have met the Virgin Mary. She appeared to them several times, and over the course of like,
Now,
no, hold on. Let me tell
occurred
you
to
the
them
story.
privately, or
No,
okay,
okay, well,
okay.
let me tell you what happened. So yes, she appears to these kids privately at first, supposedly, and these kids tell the town. Uh, they tell the whole town that on a certain day in 1914, like a little while later, there would be a sign from there'd be a sign from her that or that she exists or something like that. So like thousands of people, over 10,000 people in the city gather all together, and they tell, and like they all quote receive the sign, or well, not even all of them. Like they all look up at the sun, and some of them say that they saw like the sun moving around, like it was zigzagging and doing all this stuff. And it's just thousands of people. Some of the people like confirm the same story. Some people will say, yeah, they saw the sun zigzagging. Some people will say the sun was like spinning around, whatever. Some people didn't even see anything at all. They were there, they didn't see anything. And so this is thousands of people, thousands. And of course, we know the sun didn't actually move at all, because if it did, that would completely destroy the Earth. And also, nobody else anywhere else in the world saw it move. Of course, you know, the soldiers in the trenches never saw the sun move around. Nobody else saw it. And so the point is, that was just 12 people or so. This is thousands of people who are claiming to see this thing, which evidently didn't happen. You see the parallels I'm drawing here.
I can see what you're saying.
I mean, don't you think that's important?
But there's a difference between seeing the sun move.
This is thousands of people seeing something that evidently didn't happen, that many of them saw, many thousand saw.
But there's a difference between that and seeing a dead guy alive again.
It's thousands of people versus just 12. Okay, the 12 people seeing Jesus come back to life is not so hard to believe when you hear that thousands of people thought they saw the sun jumping around in the sky. It becomes a lot easier to see how this thing could have happened.
Around in the sky. So what, people were looking up at it and they were wobbling around?
Yeah, as it turns out, interestingly, there was the sun was zigzagging and wobbling and spinning and all this stuff. But as it turns out, if you stare at the sun, like the muscles on the side of your eyes get like tired or whatever, and so your vision starts to bob or whatever, and so you start seeing hallucinations essentially. And so
okay, so there we have a rational explanation for why they saw the sun bobbing around.
But it's still it's the same point though. This is thousands of people thinking they saw something that didn't happen. Thousands of people. Not just 12.
So what's the mental trick that convinced the 12 that Jesus was alive when he wasn't?
Well, I have absolutely no idea. That's a fair point. What I should ask you, what is the difference between what these thousands of people saw or claim to have seen and what the apostles claim to have seen? What's the difference?
Well, in the sun jumping around in the sky, right there, you provided me a rational explanation for why they saw the sun jumping around the sky. We still don't have a rational explanation for why the disciples thought they saw Jesus alive again.
I'm not asking how we can prove that what they saw didn't happen. I'm asking what's the difference between their claims.
I don't follow.
What is the difference between someone claiming to see this thing that defies the laws of physics in the 20th century and someone seeing something that defies the laws of physics in the 1st century? What's the difference?
The difference is we have an explanation for why these thousands of people thought they saw what they saw.
So are you implying that because we don't have an explanation for it, we have good reason we should think that it's credible?
Yes.
Wait, hold on. Wait. I'm going to ask you again. You're saying I may have broken up or something, but are you saying it's credible to believe what the guys in the 1st century are saying because we don't have a way, we can't verify it. We can't verify what they're saying is true.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay,
We have a reason to believe what the guys in the first century were saying because there's no way to rationally explain what they thought they saw otherwise.
that's an argument from ignorance.
It's not.
Yes,
We can
it
explore
is.
how legends develop,
That
and
okay?
we can try to figure out like how they came to think that Jesus rose from the dead when he didn't.
What you're saying is we don't have an explanation for it, so we should believe it. We don't have an explanation as to why the apostles made these claims, but we
Okay,
should believe it.
look. So so the apostles claimed that they saw Jesus die from the dead and rise from the dead, and they died for that claim, right?
Right.
Okay, we can try to explain this. You've proposed one legendary development. We can also say that they lied, that they told the story knowing that it wasn't true. We can also say that they
Also, that's not necessarily the case.
yeah, or we can say actually this is probably closer to what you're saying. We can say that they thought Jesus rose from the dead, but he didn't actually. We can say that Jesus actually rose from the dead. We can say that they mistook. We can go with the swoon theory if we want. Jesus didn't actually die on the cross; he crawled his way out of
I
the
don't think
tomb.
that's very. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think that's.
But these are all options, right? But when we go down the line and we find reasons within the narrative that the apostles told to discredit all of them except that Jesus rose from the dead, then we can reasonably say that Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay. Well, a we don't have the whole picture. Even if we
No, we
were to
don't.
say, okay, even if we were to say that all of the other currently known possible explanations are not good, that still wouldn't make the resurrection story true, especially when we're making this sort of claim. We're making a claim about the supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so we can't just say, oh well, we don't know uh how the story could have been changed. We don't know how
Not
they
just
could
that
have.
we don't know, there is no possible explanation.
That's also not true. Uh,
Okay, then
I mean,
let's explore it.
I don't know how you came to that. You'd have to show that to say there is no possible explanation. You would have to investigate every single potential story, which we neither have the time nor the ability to do. So that's
Actually, it's a lot faster than you think. There's only
no,
so many explanations we can
it's
offer.
actually not. I mean, you th- you think we could even? I mean, if we're being if we're putting all options on the table, then you could even say it was something like time travel. Okay, if we're putting all options on the table, which is clearly ridiculous, but you have to, or it's ridiculous to us right now because time travel is not yet figured out, or if it is even
Mm-hmm.
possible. I don't think it is, but or
Right.
at least, but
But see, this is the thing. After my four options, there, the explanations for why the apostles made the claims they did get successively more ridiculous.
James just said the appearance before the multitude is regarded as a suspicious later interpolation, so we're reduced to a very small number of pivotal moments.
Which is why I go to the apostles
So wait a minute.
themselves.
Wait, you're saying the appearance before the multitude, the 12, whatever is. You're saying that
I'm
is
I'm
that
saying
is a
it's
possible interpolation.
no. I'm saying that it's suspicious to you, so I wouldn't use it.
Okay, I agree with what James is saying here.
In the same way as um, what was that tablet that the
The
Romans
Nazareth
said
inscription.
yes. So I mean that by itself doesn't prove anything. So I'm not going to use it for you.
Well, it also
I'm
doesn't
just going to show
prove
you like
anything, even in conjunction with Tacitus and other things.
actually it does, but
Well, it doesn't, and the reason it doesn't.
Again, you wouldn't find that convincing, so I'm not going to use that.
No, I don't find it convincing because it's, it first of all has a range of dates. Second of all, it doesn't have an authorship. We don't know. We have absolutely zero idea who wrote it. Third, even if it was written in Galilee, the Romans didn't occupy Galilee until was it 44 A.D. So that's at the very least 11 years after Jesus died, at the very least. So why on earth would they have waited so long to write this inscription if it were written for Jesus?
I didn't want to talk about the Nazareth inscription because because you don't find it convincing. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Like, I wouldn't use that because you don't find it convincing.
Well, I'm not.
I do think it's a piece of evidence, but
well, it's not that it's not convincing to me just because I don't accept that Jesus rose from the dead. It's not convincing because of the reasons I described. It doesn't have a specific date or authorship or location. It has,
and so I wouldn't use it.
Exactly. So even in conjunction with other things, with like Tacitus and Josephus, it still wouldn't be usable for anything.
Yes, it would.
No, Josephus and Tacitus are specific with what they're saying. The Nazareth inscription, we have very little information
it's specific
about
to what the gospel is saying.
We have very little information. If we found another part of the Nazareth inscription that said, hey, this thing was written in 37 BC because people were stealing stealing bodies from graves, then I would be more inclined.
And if you said and if it said I would be more anything else, you wouldn't give a damn. Which is why I'm not going to use the Nazareth inscription.
Not necessarily true, but we know Christianity was a growing concern by the time of Nero, way before Tacitus or Josephus. Okay, but
Tacitus and Josephus are both recording the history of what happened during that time.
But the Jesus
did their
said
records
Josephus
legendarily developed too? I mean, come on.
The Jesus said Josephus reference was one of 5 sons of a guy named Onanus.
What?
Yeah, I read that was from that wasn't Annals. That was because Tacitus wrote Annals.
Mm-hmm. Josephus and his Antiquities.
That might have been. Was that from Antiquities?
I don't know.
Oh no! Wait, here it is. This is a different guy. Yes, it has to be. This has to be a different guy. Okay. Jesus ben Ananias, I guess. Okay, so it's a different Jesus. Huh. Interesting. It's in the War of the Jews. You've heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what it's from.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Okay, but it's evidently way after, which is after Paul is writing, went around Jerusalem prophesying the city's destruction. Interesting. Huh. Weird history facts.
Christ and blah, blah, blah.
Weird history facts. James is asking if the Beast 666 was Nero.
No.
No? You don't think so?
I mean, I don't care about Nero. Nero's neither here nor there to what we're talking about.
I was just
trying to establish that Jesus rose from the dead.
Okay.
That's all I care about right now.
Right. Okay. So, okay. All right. So,
the Beast was Origen's mother. There.
Maybe. He says there was silence. Could you hear me? Hello, Marco?
Hmm? What? Polo.
Okay. He said
James
said there was...
I think he's like asking me questions, thinking I'm not responding to him. I'm not responding to him. I'm
Okay,
responding to you.
I was. There was. I think there was silence because I was reading a. I was reading an article. Sorry about that.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was just looking at stuff. Okay. So you're saying that the evidence is that when we whittle down all the possible reasons for why the story changed over time,
For why the story even exists, why they
okay,
made the claims they did.
left dead air time. Okay, you know, sometimes my brain, I've got to think about what I'm saying. I don't have it all memorized. Um, uh, but okay, so why does the story exist at all? Well, again, even I'm not a historian. I'm a science
Okay.
major, so I'm not the person to ask why there's a
You don't
story
you
at
don't
all.
have to be a historian or a science major to grasp it. I mean,
I think I believe a historian. Hey, maybe you could call in the Atheist Experience and ask Matt Dillahunty what his thoughts are on it, and tell him your own thoughts.
Mm.
Hey, it's a
Okay.
thought, I guess. Say, because I don't know what he thinks about that. I guess I mean he thinks that it was legendary, that the story was aggrandized over time. But I don't know what
Okay,
his.
but we've all, between you and me, if I'm right, we've already accepted that this story was pretty set by the time Paul died in.
No,
No?
I agree with you that the foundations of Christianity were pretty set, which they would kind of have to be for Christianity to have a basis. But as for the source of the claims themselves, all we have are the friendly sources who are kind of biased towards themselves.
Well, we also have the neutral source, Josephus. Oh, we also have the two. I mean, we don't have them, but we also have Thales and Phlegon,
Who are also writing years later,
who
not during.
witnessed an astronomical event, a an atmospheric event. We recorded the strange darkness from Jesus' crucifixion. There's that.
Was I think was it something, it was like some guy Africanus, Julius
Josephus
Africanus.
Africanus, yes. He's
Uh,
the reason we know of Thales and Phlegon, yeah.
okay, but he wrote like contradictory events of, or he wrote contradictory tales of that event. Um, also the
Yeah, probably recording everything he heard.
well, yeah, but if he's
Without
writing
without
contradictory,
regard for whether any of it was true or not.
if he's writing
But
contradictory tales of what these other guys said, then how can we take them seriously? Also, what we know about the way eclipses work
because two of them
tells us
do.
that it couldn't have happened the way they described,
How long
or the
does an
way one of
eclipse
them described.
last?
It only lasts like a few hours. Like a few hours. One of them said it lasted like a really long time, didn't they?
An eclipse lasts like 17 minutes. Like some ridiculously
Yes.
small amount of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
7 minutes. Okay, so 7 minutes.
The
And they said it lasts like
said,
3 hours,
yeah.
wasn't it?
So whatever happened at Jesus' crucifixion, it was not an eclipse. And this is what Thales and Phlegon are recording.
Okay, then what could it possibly have been?
I don't know. I say it was the
Yeah, RJ, we got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, remember, we can't pin down Jesus's date, so knowing in what year pin any darkness is problematic. That's a fair point.
Of course not. That's why I said it would be really nice to actually have the writings of Thales and Phlegon to know the date that they recorded that eclipse.
He
And then
says
we could actually pin down that when Jesus was actually crucified. This is why we have like a 4-year um, give or take on how on when Jesus was born and when he died.
The issue is whether the darkness took place at all. Sources on that, documentation external to Matthew.
Thallus Phlegon, as recorded by Josephus Africanus.
I thought it was, is it Josephus or Julius?
Josephus.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Flavius Josephus, and then there's Josephus Africanus.
But if it couldn't be an eclipse, dates are irrelevant on any darkness.
Oh, sure, because nothing that's not material exists. Yeah, right.
Again, that's
okay. Let me tell you about Jesus Christ. I mean, this is the core of the problem. I'm coming at it from a paradigm that says the supernatural is possible. You're coming from the paradigm that says the supernatural is not possible.
Hold on. I had to say hold on because I knew you were going to go there. I'm
talking to James right now. It's not you.
I'm not saying, and neither is he. I know he would be perfectly open to the concept of supernatural if it were proved, if it could be proved either rationally or empirically or what have you. But invoking the supernatural when we have absolutely zero basis upon which to describe what that would even be just creates more question marks than it solves. It doesn't solve anything.
I offer the apostles.
No, you haven't. We have no way to know. Yeah, he says, and I'm listening to you. We have no way to know whether or not what they're saying is true, and the very best we have is that they're claiming it.
Yeah, and then they are suffering terrible fates for that.
And again, that's not the issue. As we discussed earlier in the article I told you about, or the article I read on the Christians on martyrdom, is that righteous are those who are persecuted. So martyrdom spurred them onward. So that's not the issue.
Yes, it did.
So martyrdom is not the issue here. It's not whether or not they died for their beliefs. That's again not the issue. The issue is the claims.
Why would that? But this is another thing. Why would martyrdom enter into the Christian ethic? Why would that even be a thing?
Why not? Why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it? Because
they were already passing down oral traditions that it is good
about martyrdom
that you
for
are
political ideals.
That you are a strong person if you can withstand persecution, and that if you die for this cause, according to these guys, which is what we pointed out earlier, that you will be revered if you are killed for this cause, according to this one group, not to all Romans, because as we pointed out, the Romans weren't good with that idea. But
okay, and this is because the apostles themselves suffered for their claims, correct?
I mean, it is claimed that they did. And this kind of goes back to, well, who's in charge of, how do we know the apostles died the way that it says they did? All we have are church and apocryphal, all we have are the Gospels, the apocryphal texts, and some other things. We don't really have independent confirmation that they all died the same way, or that they all died the way historically that the Bible claims, or the apocryphal texts.
The Bible doesn't actually claim that any of them died.
Okay, well,
it points to the way Peter died, but
okay. I suspect.
But yeah, that's in the Bible. There's also
I have no suspicion on that. Okay, well, that's fair, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that was what I came across. I think I don't remember where I came across that, but that was just something I had. And maybe they are. Again, I mean, that's, even if they are accurate, even if they are true, that still doesn't even touch the issue of the truth of what they're saying.
Right. So let's investigate. What would make them say what they said? And we're going to go back to legendary development. Yes.
Well, I mean, it is a possibility. It's what I think based on the current evidence that I've been given, it seems the most likely route. But
okay, so how does that happen? By the way, I've got about a half hour left.
Okay, we can. Okay, how does it happen?
Yeah. How does legendary development happen within the lifetimes of the apostles?
The same way I told you fishtails happen.
How's that?
The same way the Roswell incident happened.
What's the evolution of the story?
What happens is you tell it to other people, and or even if it's just you, and that's what fishtails are.
No.
Hold on. Let me finish. With fishtails, for instance, it'll be one person who maybe caught a foot-long fish, but then by accident they'll misremember it because our brains are imperfect, and when we remember things, we're not actually remembering the memory itself. According to neurological studies, we're remembering the last time we remembered that memory.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, if your brain accidentally changes it for some reason, you're remembering a false memory. Not saying it's like the Mandela effect where but he didn't actually die or something crazy like that, which is funny stuff. I think the Mandela effect is hilarious. It amuses me to no end. But it is possible to misremember things, and if you misremember something early on, that affects everything else.
Okay, so how did they misremember something so quickly?
Okay, this is at the very least 24 years later, as we established.
At the very most, 24
years
in the case of Paul.
But do we know
less than that in the case of Peter? He died in 54.
Do we know when? But Peter didn't write anything. Yeah.
First and Second Peter.
Oh, okay. You're right.
People dispute Second Peter.
Okay.
But that's because they want to dispute everything. So I don't put much credit on that.
Okay, so, fair enough.
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm looking up Apostle. Paul the Apostle. Okay. Also known as Saul of Tarsus. In the mid-30s to mid-50s AD, he founded several churches in Asia Minor and Europe. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Died AD 67. Okay.
67?
Yeah, it says AD 67.
That's right. Yeah. So 34 years then.
But I still have to agree with. He said, okay, Peter says second is proved to be fake and not by Peter. I don't know about that. I'm not going to take sides on that. That's just what he says. I don't know enough on it to make any pronouncements.
Yeah, that's because Peter likes jumping the gun on what is proved and what is not.
But James is right in saying that everyone misremembers things. It is inevitable. It is natural. It just happens.
Okay, and here's my question then. How does someone misremember something that badly?
Again, and then we're taken back to
a guy dying on a cross and being buried.
And we're taken...
He rose again. Oh, and by the way, he's also God. How do you misremember that?
Okay, well, for one thing, they would have had a bias towards their own beliefs to begin with. Second of all, we're brought back to Fatima, Portugal, where not 12 people, but thousands of people thought they saw the sun move around. If we had no way to investigate it, if this happened, if we had records of Fatima, Portugal, but these were from like the 1st century AD, and it said thousands of people saw the sun move around, and we got independent confirmation from a whole bunch of different people.
But we know that thousands of people are having their retinas burned.
Look, that's not the point. It's not the point that we can independently or that we can naturally explain it. The point is that they thought they saw these things.
Okay, and why? Why did they think they saw these things?
Why did they think they saw it? They thought they saw it because
happen?
their retinas were. We know how it happened to the people in Fatima.
Right, we do.
But what you're saying is even though we don't know what happened to the people in 2,000 years ago, we can believe their testimony on this thing that we can't investigate anymore.
I say so, yeah.
I think that
But
no.
that's because we have gone through all the possible things that can happen to people in these situations, and there's no rational explanation for
That's
what they
that's
said.
not that's not true at all. You can't even appeal to the supernatural at this point because we haven't gone through the all the natural explanations.
Well, then let's do that. Let's do that then.
Hey, after this conversation, I'm thinking we can do a hangout after show on my YouTube. Any interested? Sure, sounds good. Okay. Um, I'm still sticking with um uh aggrandizing the tale, not because I'm being dogmatic about it, but simply because at this point, even still, I still don't see any good reason to believe that Jesus rose from the dead. Oh, you gotta need to sleep. Okay. You did also say that you only had about half an hour left on your
Yeah,
computer.
yeah.
Okay.
I have about 20 minutes now, so.
Well, don't want to keep you.
But
Thank you very much.
you're sticking to legendary development. That's the bubble I would need to pop.
If you could, ha ha ha. Okay, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Alrighty then.
Well, we're calling it.
On Twitter.
Okay. I'll post a video about it.
Okay, hey,
About
that's
the
also
problems
fair.
with legendary development, misremembering, and um, legendary development, misremembering, and what was the other one we said?
Studies
Just all
on
at the same time. Yeah, no.
misremembering things in legendary development. So, anyways, all right. Well, thank you for coming on today. We've been talking for like about an hour and 40 minutes almost.
Yep, something like that.
All right, long time, long
Yeah.
time. Good stuff. Alrighty then. Well, I'll talk to you later. Thank you very much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
All right. You too. Talk to you later, and goodbye, everyone.
Yeah, talk to you later. See you soon.